September 10th, 2021, and we are here at the Mount Dora dock by the Mount Dora Yacht Club, and we're talking to Scott Alderman. My name's Ernie Mosfeller. I'm going to be doing the interview. And Scott, introduce yourself. Tell us how long you've been in Mount Dora, how long your family's been in Mount Dora. Give us a who, what, when, where kind of thing.
Okay, I'm Scott Alderman. I lived all my life here in Mount Dora, in and around Mount Dora. My family, my parents lived here, my grandparents lived here, and my great-grandparents lived here on my mother's side. So, both set of grandparents lived here.
Talk to me a bit about your grandparents.
Okay, well, my grandparents on my father's side lived right here in Sylvan Shores. My grandmother was a teacher, elementary school teacher, 3rd grade. She taught school there forever. Before that, actually, if you want to go back before that, they had their restaurant downtown, my grandparents' Alderman's, called the Peppermint Step Restaurant, where the Mount Dora Center for the Arts is. And so they had that, and then my grandmother started teaching school after the restaurant, and then my grandfather worked for the county. I can't remember what his business. Oh, there was a commodities book right where the O'Keefe's is, and so he ran that for the county.
So your grandmother. Now I'm very familiar with your grandmother. Were you in her class?
No, they wouldn't let us do that.
They wouldn't let
Even
you?
though they let my sister do that after me.
Really?
But they wouldn't let me be in the same classroom as my grandmother.
So who'd you have for 3rd grade?
Harding.
Harding.
Mrs. Harding.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your parents.
My parents, well, my father ran Golden Triangle Builder Supply that my grandfather Bardwell started, my mother's parents. And he started immediately. When they first started the business, which was in, I think, 56, I want to think. I was born in 57. And so he worked there until he died. Ended up owning it. He bought the whole thing out from everybody else and owned it. And that was his passion, just to work at the builder supply. He loved it. Didn't want to go anywhere else or do anything else, and he really didn't do much of anything else because it was, like I said, it was his passion. So
That was the only time I ever saw your dad ever was at the Builder Supply or at Lions Club.
Or Lions, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And my mother, she actually worked with the city when they first had it wasn't a welcome wagon. It was a same thing as a welcome wagon, just Mount Dora made it up, and it was up at the city hall. And she went around. She was called the Welcome Hostess, and she would go around and everybody that came in town, she'd get them all the literature of all the businesses in town and all whatever else was going on in town at that time, which was slim to none. As far as activities go, not like now. So, and that's what she did until she died.
That was, yeah, it was early mid-60s. You're a kid. Yeah. It's Saturday. What are you doing?
Early mid-60s. That would have put me 8 years old. It's probably 8 years old, I think. Well, we came up with, of course, California got the credit for it, but we came up with making skateboards. And I had taken one of my pair of my sister's skates, pulled them apart, stuck a 2x4 in between them, and bolted it all down. And we used it to go up and down the hills all over town, everywhere.
Who all was skateboarding with you?
Oh, well, up around the corner from me, the closest one was Gary Van Landingham. He was there. Ben Seabrook, who lived another 3 blocks the other direction, and Danny, his brother.
Dora was kind of a skateboard hotbed in the 70s, actually.
Yeah.
There were a lot of us.
Yeah. We skateboarded all the hills in Mount Dora, everything there was. We even went over down 11th Avenue. Only did that once. That was enough.
Did you ever go down Thrill Hill?
No. God, no. I don't think you could, because I think there were some pebbles on that rock, on that there wasn't a smooth.
By 76 you could, because
Oh, yeah?
I did.
Well, I was done. I graduated in '75, so I was done. I'd given that up a long time ago.
All right, that's interesting. Skateboarding in Mount Dora. I hadn't thought about even talking about that.
And we used to go down anytime after 5 o'clock, Monday through Friday. We could skateboard down, which one of the bigger hills is coming down Fifth Avenue. We come down to Donnelly Street, take a left down Donnelly Street, and get about halfway down the block, and then it was the slope had stopped. So we would pack up and go back up. You know, pick up the boards and go back up. You know, back then you didn't do all this, the tricks and everything. The only thing we'd ever done that was anywhere near tricky was to put out cones or to put out whatever in the middle of the road and swerve in and out of it. That was that was the extent of it.
What,
Otherwise, it's all straight downhill and see how fast you can go.
and were you skating like on steel wheels?
Oh yeah,
or, yeah.
My sisters, they didn't have the other wheels by then, the composites. All they had was steel wheels. Towards the end, it's probably somewhere around 70, I would guess, is when the composite plastic wheels came in, which was a lot better because with the steel wheels, if you hit any acorn, your history. You're flying through the air if you hit one of those things. So you always had to be really very careful. Every day we'd go water skiing, you know, during the summers. Every day after work, I'd leave the builder supply and the guys would leave wherever they are. A lot of them worked out at the farms. And we'd go water skiing. We're either skiing out at my grandmother's on Lake Ola or we're skiing over David Andrews' on Lake Gertrude. And we did that every day. On weekends, you know, even more. And we'd have a whole bunch of people. It'd probably be a whole bunch, half a dozen to maybe 10 at the most, people skiing all day long. We'd all go out and chip in and buy gas and go skiing.
What's your early memories of the water? Is it the Pram Club?
I learned how to sail right here at the Mount Dora Yacht Club, and I was 6 years old. When I had my first regatta, and I've been doing it ever since then. So, however long that is.
You've not missed one since you were 6.
No, absolutely not. I've come back from the Bahamas just to do that. So, and I was, you know, my grandparents, Bardwells, had lived in the Bahamas for a while, so we were on the Bahamas, around the water, always over there, because there were no roads on this small island that they lived on. So we had to take the boats to go anywhere and everywhere we wanted to go, including the store or anything, period. Unless you walked the beach and went down and around and did all that. But otherwise, yeah. And then both my grandfathers are big boaters. They loved to boat, and so that's where I got my boating from, and I'm still doing that today.
Now you're like,
sure, I mean,
you're one of 2 tours on the lake here in Mount Dora, or 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And
2 bigger tours. Well, 3 now. Bigger tour boats on the waterways. I love it. You know, I get to show my hometown off from a position that most people don't get to see it from, or take the time to see it from. So, but now that it's a known thing to do, we get a lot of people. We do thousands and thousands and thousands of people, tens of thousands or more every year.
You've been friends with David Andrews since...
His father delivered me. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, since day one.
So, and you guys are the same age?
Yeah, same exact age. Yeah,
Okay.
2 months apart.
Okay. So you guys had something... You guys had a business in the 70s, 80s, a marina?
We started a marina. Yeah, we had the first high and dry storage with boats over in Tavares, right on 441, just off the Dead River. And it was great. Something that we both loved to do. Both loved to be on the water, deal with boats. We saw the need for high and dry storage in Lake County. Nobody had it, and there weren't any big marinas being built anywhere otherwise. So we had some wet slips, but the majority of what we did was the high and dry up in the building.
When did you decide you were going to do the water for a living?
Then, when I did that, because then I got my captain's license when I was there, which worked out real well being on the highway and all. I ran tours there every day through the Dora Canal, and then I had lunch tours where I would go to a local restaurant by the water. Same thing I do here. And from there, I was bringing boats over to Mount Dora all the time. between rental. I was bringing rental boats to start with, so I'd have to run rental boats over here all the time, and I got tired of having to bring them over here because a lot of people were staying at the Lakeside Inn, for instance, and they didn't want to have to come all the way over to where I was in Tavares, so they would call me up and I'd have to deliver the boat over here. Got to be enough of a business where I had an employee that I left over here, bought 3 boats and put them over here doing the tours. I mean, doing the rental boats. And then when I left the marina, we got rid of the marina, I brought the tour boat over with me. So that's when I started up the tour boat business here.
Okay.
It's all history from there. Roseberry Elementary?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, that's where my grandmother taught school, and I went through all of my 6th grades.
Do you remember your
6 and
teachers?
6.
Do you remember your teachers?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Go for it.
Oh God. Mrs. Marvin was my 1st grade teacher. My 2nd grade teacher left halfway through the year. She had an illness, so she had to leave. So I don't really remember who the second person was, other than that she didn't really care for me. The first one did. We got along great. But then she ended up being, she was the substitute for quite a while. Of course, you always harass a substitute. So that didn't go over real well when she decided to stay full time. So, but anyway. And then 3rd grade was Mrs. Harding. 4th grade was Mrs. Denny, I believe. 5th grade. And then 5th grade was, maybe 5th grade was Mrs. Denny. I can't remember who 4th would have been. I was in the same exact classroom for some reason, however they decided to divide people up. And then in 6th grade, I was with Mrs. Curris, and that's when we started doing all the class switching. So we had a ton of teachers, but the main one was Mrs. Curris.
Did you have Mr. Rittenhouse?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we had him. He was up over the basketball stadium. It was his class.
And let's talk a little bit about phys ed at Roseboro.
Okay. Oh, that was Mr. Clement. He was great. Love Mr. Clement and Mrs. Clement. But Mr. Clement was over there. He was the PE teacher. We got along really, really well. Matter of fact, he even let me be a ball boy, basically, for all the kids at the high school for basketball, because he taught basketball. He coached basketball. And so I would go with them to all their games all over the place. And for the guys that were probably 3 years older than me, something like that, and they were already in high school and playing ball. And that was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it was. And then at the end of high school, he let me, my junior and my senior year, I was an PE assistant for him as one of my credits. I actually got credit for that.
Finish up Roseboro and you go to Mount Dora High School. Tell me about Mount Dora High School.
Then it was 6 years for elementary school and 6 years for high school, and there was no middle school. Of course, that was interesting the way that turned out, because the place that sure you want to hear this? The place that the middle school was in was out in Easttown, what we call Easttown, which was basically a black section of town. And one of our classmates, his father was the school board. He was on the school board, and another one was the head of the school board. So we weren't going to get shipped to the middle school in the place it was at until their kids, went through. So it's never been said, but it's a awful mere coincidence that that's the way it worked out, which is fine. I mean, my sister went there and there was no problems. So we only had a couple. We'd have very few. I mean, in the whole school when I was there. Well, probably not, because you would have been there during part of that time. But in our class, we didn't have. I mean, you can look at all the pictures and you'll see that. I mean, there weren't a half a dozen in our whole class for all the classes, because we probably had 4 classrooms full of kids through 6th grade. And then we went to the high school. Then that's when the integration came around, and it was definitely mixed then. which is good because you ran into a lot of good people that end up being friends for life still.
I was going to say, how do you think we handled it as a generation and as a town?
Pretty good, I think. Really, I mean, if you look at other towns that hasn't been as good, of course, we did have our racial conflicts in school. Those usually happen at least once a year, and the more you think about it, you think back on it, it was pretty justified. A lot of things that were going on could have been different than what they were, and would have made things a lot smoother.
Is Mount Dora different? Is it now? Was it then? Or is it just us being snotty?
I don't think it was just to being snotty. I mean, if you look at what we had, I mean, at one time, if you want to get down to the monetary part of it, Mount Dora had more millionaires per square miles, which we didn't have a square mile, I doubt, per square foot, than any other city in the United States. So what does that tell you? I mean, they had a lot of people come into town that saw the advantages of Mount Dora and were willing to live here. Most of them, of course, were retired, and they wanted to live the rest of their life here. So it's not just sunny Florida. We got our photographer, so it's definitely someplace special.
You've memorized all this stuff for your tours.
Oh no, actually, not too much.
I didn't know that about the more millionaires than anywhere else. Where really?
This must have been late 50s, early 60s.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
it's written somewhere. I'm sure somebody's got it written somewhere.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And besides that, I mean, we've got more than just money going with us, and older people with the money. Of course, the older people with the money, back in those days, they didn't like to spend it on kids too much because they'd already done their kid thing and they moved out and came down here, not so they could raise a bunch more kids. But they were very generous with what they did have, and if you're in your Boy Scouts or whatever group it is in, whether it's in high school, and you needed to raise money for things, they would step up and contribute. So that helps, and a lot of them did help in the high schools and all with their knowledges of the different jobs that they had during their lives. So that was a plus.
The Hurricane Hut. How was that supported, and what? Talk to me as a user, but also tell me where did that come from? How did it?
It's part of the high school.
Was it like Lake County School Board owned it, or?
Yeah, Lake County School Board owned it. At one time, it was used for classes. I had a class in there. I don't remember what it was. I think it was Mr. Alderman, and it was. Matter of fact, he's still alive, so you need to get him on this. It was the driver's ed class we had in there, where we saw all the films of everybody getting all torn up in a car wreck, and when they try to scare us into being good people and do the right thing. I'm not sure how well that worked, but and then of course it was a place where it ended up being a place at one time for when they had concerts, and there were bands that were formed here in Mount Dora. We had a lot of good musicians, and they had concerts, small concerts. It's just Mount Dora people. Nobody's going to come here from Eustis or Tavarias or anywhere else, but. We would have concerts in there, and they'd be at night, and they'd charge you to get in, and it was the thing to do. That, especially during the '60s, you can imagine.
Anything else that sort of defined social life in Mount Dora in those? I mean, not necessarily for a teenager, but in general.
No, most of them were all either church oriented or school. Big one, the big thing was school, really. You've got all the clubs that were in the school, and the whatever sports you were playing. They would also be involved in fundraising and such as that.
Now, did you play?
Oh yeah, I played. We played as a group of us that were a little bigger for our age. I played 5 years of high school ball, so they took us in 8th grade or 7th grade.
You could play 5 years of high school ball back then?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I played 3 years, I think 3 years of junior varsity and 2 years of varsity.
Okay. Okay.
So,
And how were we any good back then?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Well,
Is that a real question? Yeah, no. Yeah, when our senior year, or our junior year, we went to state, didn't win. Junior year, we only lost, and that year we tied one game, I believe. I don't think we lost any except for when we lost going into state. And then our senior year, we lost one, and that's all it took to knock us out of going to state. So we didn't get to go to state that year. But we were good. We had a lot of good people. The class before us in '74, they had a lot of good big people that were in there, smart people, and so did we. Because of the combination of both, it worked out real well for Mount Dora High School.
And I was gonna say, and you beat Eustis.
Oh yeah,
It was
we always beat Eustis.
That was the.
That's the biggest rivalry was Eustis.
I think it still is. Is it not?
Probably so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would think so.
Um,
And now I've got soccer and everything else. My daughter played soccer here. We did real well with them too. But the problem was with that is that we'd had to play private schools. So you go over to Orlando and you play the one that's downtown. I can't remember who that is right now.
Lake Highland.
Lake Highland. Lake Highland. Well, they had some guy hired. They could hire just the coach. Well, they had a guy that was Olympic coach down in South America that they hired up here for them. So they're always the ones that knocked us out from being number one. A group of us, 4 or 5 of us, they were pretty good tennis players. So, and they didn't have tennis at Mount Dora High School at the time. So we all got together and said, we're going to make this happen. We went up to the school, to the principal, Folsom probably. He said, yeah, here, just get these papers signed and we'll do it. So we had to get a sponsor, one of the teachers to be a sponsor. So we stuck it in with some other papers and we got him to sign it. I don't think he ever showed up to any of the practice, ever did anything. We drove our own cars to all the games that were all over the place, which was a lot of fun. And we did okay, because nobody knew how to play us. So, when you first start something up, nobody knows how to play it. They have no idea unless they just happen to be in Mount Dora, because we didn't play anywhere else other than Mount Dora. Not with the school, but in general. And so they didn't know how to play us, so we did real well, and we had some good players. We really did.
That's excellent. It's after a football game, or it's not football season.
Yeah.
What do you do? Friday night, Saturday night.
No, well, we'd go to basketball games. A lot of my friends still play basketball, so they went to basketball. Or sometimes we go to the baseball games, or in weekends and things. And we'd have parties. We would go to different people's homes. My grandparents had a nice home just on the outside of town in Tangerine, and they've been known to have a few parties out there.
There were some that were, I guess, close to your grandparents' house, but not actually at your grandparents' house. Like underneath a big tree on the side of the road.
Oh, and Big Tree Road?
Yeah, Big Tree Road.
That's Alderman was out there now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those were just basic get-togethers. I mean, you knew where people were going to be. One of the biggest places everybody went to was McDonald's in Eustis. The only McDonald's, the only fast food type of place like that. And everybody went there, no matter whether you were from Tavares, Eustis, Mount Dora, Umatilla. That was, we went there to socialize after any games, or in weekends, even if there wasn't a game going on. That's the place you went.
That was and that was true until they built Burger King.
Yeah, and then it split up a little bit, but still McDonald's was still the number one place to go.
Tell me about 1001 Nights.
That was a great place. There was a guy named Raul Javahari. He was the owner of this restaurant, or the nightclub. And it was strictly a nightclub. It was a discotheque. A big discotheque was big then. And we rebuilt the whole building on the inside, made the balcony larger because it was just at the end of the building, and then it went all the way down both sides. They made the stage, which was actually a stage to that. They made that into the bar, and then in front of that, over on the left, we had the dance floor.
How long was that open?
Let's see. I was there from day one. And when did we open? We opened up in 77? Might have been 77 there. And then I left in 79 when I went to Orlando to another nightclub over there. And then within 2 years it was out of business. They weren't putting the money back into it. There were financial complications. So, but it was a lot of fun. That was another thing that was a lot of fun. You learn a lot about people in that business. A ton about people.
So you left high school, you worked around here
At the Builder Supply.
at the Builder Supply. That's you just
Gold
went
Triangle
right to work
Builder
for
Supply.
Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I started there when I was 15. It was a way for my father to keep track of me because my mother just died just before that. So he didn't know what he was going to have to do with me during the summer, and he didn't want to, you know, being 14, just turning 15 is by the end of that year, school year, he didn't want to just let me, you know, run the city around the city by myself or with whomever. So I went to work at the Builder Supply.
Okay.
Wasn't able to drive the trucks or do anything, but I got all the good jobs like sweeping the floors and loading all the trucks and unloading the box cars full of cement, 100-pound bags full of cement. That was always a lot of fun.
And so the bar work was like secondary work for you?
Sorry,
That
yeah,
was like
I was actually doing both at one time until it just got to be too much. I couldn't do both, so I quit at the Builder Supply.
Okay. Okay.
Quit working for my father, fortunately or unfortunately, as it turned out. But so then I was working there. Yeah, I was getting paid as much or more than I was for my father, and it was a hell of a lot more fun. And unloading boxcars full of cement and lumber and doing all the work like that. So I went to work there at nights.
Go to the drive-in ever?
Yeah, I went a couple times. I know one of my friends. He used to go out behind it. He'd take a date and go out behind it in the orange grove, drive up to the fence that was there, and watch the movie. It was too cheap to buy tickets to get in. So.
Yep. Do you have a memory of Charlie's at all?
Oh yeah, definitely. My grandfather had some of his offices above Charlie's, where the top of the post was, and the Smathers were good family friends of ours. That was Will Smathers and Otto Koppas that started that, and I actually worked there as a dishwasher. I worked there a little while, not all that long, because they ended up getting professionals in there that couldn't rely on us well enough, I guess. I don't know, whatever excuse it made. But that was a great place. It started out real small in Charlie's, and then they opened it up in the back, and Will put the bar all the way in the back. It was a little alley back there, and he put the bar in the back because it was a great bar. You don't see nice little dark, dingy type bars like that anymore. And the most comfortable chairs I have ever, bar stools, and I've been on a few in my life, were there. And he actually got those from his brothers from the Beef and Bottle. They had a Beef and Bottle up in Gainesville. And because we went up there, pick them up for him, help him pick them up. And they were form fed, come around, they had tie backs. It was great. That was a great bar. When the restaurant was there for my grandparents, I remember my grandparents telling me the story about how because they had the shuffleboards right across the street, and there was actually 2 tennis courts there at one time, and then they turned one of the tennis courts into more shuffleboard courts because our population is getting older, so stands to reason, I suppose. But the people from the shuffleboard court used to come over to the restaurant and order a cup of hot water. This is back when it was there were a lot more poor people around, and then they get the ketchup bottle and they squirt the ketchup into the hot water in the coffee cup, stir it up, and make tomato soup.
Really?
Yeah.
Was this like during the Depression? Did people do this?
I don't know if it was during the 30s or if it was in the 40s at that time, or exactly
Wow.
what part of exactly what that date. I don't know. That was there.
Ketchup,
I wasn't alive then.
tomato soup.
Yeah.
That's wild.
The building right in the middle, which was the shuffleboard building, that was only used for them. Nobody else could use it. The tennis players, because I was a tennis player, and so They wouldn't let us in the building, of course, but the bathrooms were underneath it, and they were really bad, really bad. But on the door of the bathroom was a sign that said white only. So, I'm going, and I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea. Because I was thinking, because I was up there playing with the guys, and some of them, back then, all the guys dressed in white. They had white shirts, they had white long pants. Some of them had short pants, most of them had that, and, they have a white hat on, and that was, it was back in the day when that was the costume that you'd have on to play tennis in. So I went down there to go to the bathroom, and I saw the sign, and went, oh no, I'm not wearing white. I thought it was because you had to wear white. I had no idea that it was a racial thing. So I looked up to the guys, and they were all going, ha, 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 yeah, go ahead. You can go in there. It's okay. Go ahead. We won't tell anybody. I went, okay, fine. So I went in there, because I only lived 2 blocks away where I grew up from there. So I was down there a lot playing tennis. There was a color entrance to the theater, to the Princess Theater.
Oh, really?
The ticket booth was here, and then the main 2 doors were right here. On the left-hand side was another one that had the stairs that went up to the balcony. I used to go up there occasionally because I kind of knew one of the film projector people, and I can remember, it didn't bother me to go up there, so I did it anyway. And I used to, I walked down, and I like to look down at all the people down below. So I looking, and I stood up, and apparently I was right in the camera. And they're going boo, 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 and I'm going, oh, what is it? So I looked back down to see what all they're booing about, and they'd stop. And then I'd raise back up, and they go, oh, boo, yeah, yeah. And the guy that was working the camera, he went to the bathroom, I think, and came back, and he goes, what are you doing, Scott? That's you there, boo. You need to move over. Your head's right in the middle of the picture. Oh, okay, sorry. And nobody said anything to me up there. I mean, there's a few black guys up there watching the movie, but nobody said anything to me. I had no idea.
What's the town like? It's the mid-70s.
Mid-70s? Well, mid-70s when I graduated high school in 75. So.
Yeah.
Then after that is when I was going to Lake Sumter, still working at the Builder Supply, and then started working at the nightclub, 1001 Nights. And then a friend of mine, actually, who lives from Tavares, Gary Harris, he was into nightclubs and the whole works. He actually ended up being a pyrotechnique, and he worked down at Disney, still does. I think he might have just retired, because I saw an advertisement that needed somebody to run the pyrotechnique stuff, all the fireworks and everything. So he had gone down there, and actually he was working with me at 1001 Nights. He was the light man and the DJ. So he came back and told me about this new place that he got a job at. He said, you need to go down and look at it. He said, it's just phenomenal. I said, okay. So one day I went down during the middle of the day and looked at it and just walked right in, and like I owned the place or something. And ended up talking with the people that I was talking to, and I ended up talking with one of the owners. And I told him what I did up there, and that I had been there for 2 or 3 years. And he looked at me and said, really? He said, yeah, nobody ever lasts that long in this business. Which is very true. It's very transient. You don't see a bartender in the same place years and years at a time. And so he said, well, if you want a job, you can have it. I went, well, okay, I'll think about it. And I ended up taking him up on it. So that's when I left 1001 Nights, and I was just working at 1001 Nights at the time, so I went down there. Of course, I got paid a lot more to go down there than I was here. Of course, there's a drive every time down there. There were only, I think there were 4 stoplights in between here and 17 or Lee Road, 441 at the time. The time I left there, which was in, oh God, when was it? It was in the 90s, early 90s. There were 12.
Disappearance of the Yankees. When did that happen? That was.
I was at Park Avenue. David was there too. He was working some with me. He ran a hotel down the road, further down 441 on the left, and I was up at Park Avenue, and What was the question again?
It was. I mean,
What about
when
it?
was it, and
Disappearance?
describe it, because that. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
that's a part of Mount Dora lore.
Right.
Is, you know.
Yeah, they were coming back. Mrs. Andrews is a family member of Mrs. Andrews had died, and it was out in like the Midwest somewhere. And the Andrewses had their own plane that Dr. Andrews flew back and forth because he was taking medical supplies and things over for them, for the Bahamians, to set up a clinic in Man o' War where they lived, or where they had a house. They didn't live there all the time. They had their house here still. And in order for them to get out of the Bahamas, they left in weather that wasn't real good. So on the way back, they apparently couldn't get out of the storm, couldn't go over the top of it, or couldn't go around it, and somehow, who knows what happened. Lightning could have hit them. Nobody knows. Nothing's ever been found. We, after that, after they disappeared, we, with Jack Morton, because he had a plane, one of the local guys in town, really great guy, he took us to several different areas over the Bahamas. One day, all day long, we went looking for the plane, you know, because to see if it went down and we could see it. We never saw anything, or any debris. Nobody ever found any debris, anything. And then one time we went down to the Keys because they hired a psychic. And the psychic told them that it was someplace in the Keys. So we went down for that and did the same thing down there, you know, just basically went island hopping with the plane and looked for something. Of course, we didn't find anything there. And nothing's ever been found, which is hard for me to believe these days, the way all this, because they just got through finding, I was watching a special last night or the night before on TV about the planes that went out, the military planes that went out, and they never came back.
Out of Fort Lauderdale, yeah, they found
supposedly
them?
they found them.
Really?
Yeah. So, but that was the reason for that. I was saying that is they found them, and they've been searching all this area in which they could have very easily gone down, and nobody's ever found it yet. I mean, if they saw it, they would go down and check it out just because it's a plane. You know, if you're doing that type of search. So, and this is, you know, obviously many years after that, so that you'd still be able to detect it and see what it is. And if they thought if they would have found it, they would have given that to somebody, government source maybe, for these planes that are missing, because it's in the Bermuda Triangle. And then you would think that they would then, by the numbers, the wing numbers, they would contact the family of the plane that went down, but nothing has ever been found.
That's nuts. It's spooky, but it's nuts.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So we're about done here, I think, and let's talk about if you could sum up. Are you happy that you grew up in Mount Dora? I mean, none of us really got a choice, but but it's like
you as well as I could live anywhere in the world that we really wanted to. But why are we here? We're here because we like it. We enjoy it. And as far as Florida goes, which I tell people who come down here for the boats all the time, you can't beat Mount Dora for a location, because an hour and a half at the most, either way, east or west, you can be to the coast. You can be anywhere in Orlando, including the airport, within an hour. So if you want to go someplace else, it doesn't take you very long. And Mount Dora is just still nice. It's still pretty quiet. It's not. The only time we're really not quiet is when we have our festivals and we have hundreds, or anywhere from 100,000, 50,000 people up to 250,000 people a day for the festivals that we have. Now they're putting in the road that goes, the big road that circles all big cities, and the 429 comes over and drops them off here at 46. And the good thing about that road is it takes away as many as it brings in here. So that's a good thing, to me. I like it. Quiet, and I wouldn't want to be inundated with people, like 100,000 people a day like we do for the arts festival and things like that. But the other thing is, it's a good thing that which this could have changed our whole town, was they're going to put UCF right out here off of 46. The road that goes over to Rock Springs, the road to nowhere. Yeah. I don't even know if it goes to Rock Springs anymore. But there's a big, beautiful road they built all the way down through there, and they're trying to entice I guess the state of Florida or maybe the feds to give the money to, but that's where the UCF was going to be before UCF became UCF. This is, they thought for sure, because they spent all that money. They spent, back then probably $100,000, which was a ton of money back in that time, for the road and the entrance and everything going down that road that goes to nowhere. It just stops. But so UCF went over there. But think about if that would happen. What Mount Dora would have been then. I remember one time I was downtown. I rode my bike downtown because I only live 3 blocks away from downtown. I live on 8th Avenue. 5th Avenue is the main road. So I was 3 blocks away, and I was in town, riding around town, doing this, that, and the other, just, talking to some of the shop owners and such as that. And my grandfather came to town, Bardwell, and at the time he lived over in Castleberry. So I had my bike down there. My grandfather said, "You want to come stay with me for the weekend?" Because a lot of times I go over and stay for the weekend. So I said, "Sure." And I wasn't anywhere near my bike. My bike was parked at one area downtown. It was on Donnelly. It was on the right-hand side where the florist used to be. And I was down someplace else when he caught me. So I got in his car and left. I forgot all about my bike. Of course, and then my grandfather called my parents to try and make sure it was okay that I went with him over to his house for the weekend. But I forgot my bike down there. But so somebody knew me and knew the bike, took the bike, put it in their business, and then the next day, brought it back out, set it in front of the business, and then put it back. And then apparently they got a call. My parents got a call saying, the bike, Scott's bike's down here. Is he okay? He didn't come back and get it. But I put it inside the building for the night, so nobody would steal it, or something would happen to it. So so that was an interesting thing in a small town. That's a small town type of thing that you probably never see that happen again.